Hi there, welcome back to Animating with TVPaint Animation Pro. My name is Shalon and I'm from P2 Studios. Today we're going to be covering a new topic, a request by one of our viewers, on how to use the FX options in our animations in TVPaint. So to begin with, we're going to create a background that's going to be a little more easier to see and be visible for our different effects that we use throughout our projects. So here under our new layer, I'm just going to go ahead and create another layer so we can use that as our top layer, and it's going to be above the current layer. And we're just going to, in the post behavior, I always choose none because I like to animate on frames. And then we're just going to hit, we're just going to name this the FX layer. So you just push OK, and here we create our FX layer. And for this visual effects, in order to see the visual effects for it, we're going to need to expand our scene or our shot so that we can see the cycle of the effects that we'll be using. So we're just going to go ahead and drag this head out to about, I'd say, 40 frames. And then we can just come back to the beginning starting frame. And to use the effects, usually it's, like I said, it's good to have a black or dark background so that you can see what exactly you are creating on the stage. So I'm just going to go to the layer underneath here and select that. And I'm going to drag this one as well out to 40 so that it matches the same frame rate as our top layer for our effects. Okay, so now that we have this ready, all we do is we go up here and we use our color, our flood fill tool. And for our flood fill tool, I'm going to choose black. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the screen. And as you can see, we got now a nice black background. So now we're going to go down to our layer menu here in the bottom of our timeline. And we're going to select the FX layer. And in this FX layer, we're going to start creating visual effects. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you the different types of effects that you can use, because there's so many that are included with this program. If you have used Flash or used Animate Pro for Toon Boom, the Animate Pro for Toon Boom does have FX included within their program, but it is very difficult to use and to come to understand. In Flash, they do have extensions or add-ons, plugins you can have for Flash for visual effects, but again, those are a little bit more complicated to understand and include within your project. I like this TVPaint animation because their effects is pretty straightforward and easier to use within your projects. So we're going to go ahead and up here on our menu bar we have, it says FX. You can choose this and you can go to open or close the panel, and when we click on it, it opens up this menu option panel called FX Stack. Now the FX Stack is what they call a stack because you can have more than one effects applied to each layer, which is pretty awesome. You can also go up to here to our top of our file menu, and where it says effects, you can choose this as well. As you can see, a menu drops down. It'll say multiple effects, single effects, and then it'll have all these different types of effects. That too, the menu is here as well when you click on Add FX, and then you can choose if you want multiple effects for this layer or just a single effects. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose single effects because we're going to go ahead and delete each time I show you the different ones. So over here they have different types of effects that you can use for your project that you're working on. We have a blur effects, we have a center effects, a chroma blur, a cubic blur, a deinterlace, a directional blur, a Gaussian blur, a median blur, a motion blur, and a radial blur. And all these are just basically different types of blurs that you can, or that allow you to create a softer feel or look to your animation, or just single frames. We have color, which is black and white converter. These are just basically kind of like filters for your images. Then you have color adjust, color eraser. You can replace colors. You can affect the curves. These are just like the curves they have in Photoshop. They have histogram, which is just the history of the different types of contrast that you have for your image. Image source, and we have also scan cleaner and sliders. All these we'll be going over a little bit later. There's distortion. These are different types of distortions that you can have for your animation. I've used quite a few of these because they give really neat effects to your images. But you got to make sure that you're using them properly because they can be a little unpredictable. So they have keying. This is for if you want to key out certain areas of your picture and you want to replace them with another picture that is in the layer underneath your current layer. We have motion, which is really good because this will allow us to, like for instance, if you have camera movements or a multi-plane camera, which is really good when you want to get your scene to look like it has a lot of depth to it. We have a shaker, which is, creates a lot of action or tension within your scene. And we have the stabilization 1 point and 2 points, which they're anchors within your image that will allow the camera to stabilize to that point or to 2 points. We have auto paint and we have rendering. Rendering is really cool because it allows you to add a wide variety of effects to your image, kind of like to finish off or enhance your project. We have a background generator. This one is just to generate colors and gradients within your project for the background. We have healing tracker, lens flare, which is really popular within films. A lot of these options will allow you to directly affect the final look of your project without having to go out and render it out to another program such as Adobe Premiere or Adobe After Effects. So that way everything is included within this package. We have lighting, and we have multi-line text. We have particle generators, which are really cool. I'm going to be showing you with those two. Pattern generator, Perlin noise, plasma, roto tracking. Roto tracking is really cool. You could track your frames to 1 point within your frames to if you're importing raw footage, you can track certain objects in those frames. It's just like PF tracker, I believe they call it. Simple text, time code generator. This is so that you can see how many frames you're using within your project. And we also have volumetric light, which is really, really good for realistic light within your project. We have stylized. This is basically things you can add to your to give a stylized look to your film. You know, you can do edge blooms, borders, color range. We have drop shadows, erode, glow, grain, halftone, lumix, mosaic, negative noise, posterize, print, solarize, and tune shading. This one's pretty cool. Tune shading gives your characters or your scene a really nice cartoon look. This is a really good feature here. It's transitions. Transitions allow you to go from like one shot to another, and allows you to control the number of frames it takes to transition from one scene to another, and it allows you to give that a stylized look, like different types of like a crossfade, a page turn, a rotary, which will it'll turn, the slide will slide in and out. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to select one of these so we can show you a little bit about the presets. So under rendering, I'm just going to go ahead and choose the particle generator. And this one I want to start off with because it is pretty a pretty cool visual effects object that we can use to add to our scenes, and enhances our scenes a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and as you can see, there is a drop down menu that forms. As you can see, there's only going to be one visual effects stack here. If we went, we could still choose multiple effects, and then we could add more to this if we need to. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the single effects. This option menu allows you to reset or delete whatever effects you're having here that you don't want to use, in case you're just trying it out, or if you just want to see what it does, like we are doing today. In our bin, we have this bin allows us to save out our template or the options that we have chosen that we want to use or repeat on another shot or another project that we want to work on. So it allows us to save out this whole template that we're using. Okay, so over here there's another, we have down here, we have a particle generator, which is checked because we want to use this. The progress profile we don't really need to use in this one. You can to enhance your ability to affect the different types of inputs that you have for your generator. Down here we have two tabs. One is called World and Emitters. The world is just kind of like what the environment, I guess the best way to put it, the environment, how it's going to affect your visual effects, your actual emitter or your particles. Sort of like wind, like how wind blows your rain, or wind blows snow, or gravity will affect the snow falling faster, or the gravity will affect the snow going slower. So in the emitters, as you can see, we have none. To choose this, we can go to New, and we can go to Point. We also have an option up here which I like to use. Is in the FX bin. This is a really cool tab. It kind of a little underrated being on the side, but if you click on it, you have different types of FX bin. This is presets that come with the program, and if we click on it, you can browse for different effects, and it'll come up and it'll say, oh look, they have this really cool little effects that they've already have as a preset. And you can choose different types of presets that they have. You can do all these different types of like cartoon. This is the country one. As you can see, it says country V. If we go to eyes, there's all these little tiny eyes that blink, and those are really cool if you put them in the dark. We have grass. This is a grass generator, as you can see, and this is going up because of our gravity here in our world. If you go ahead, and what this is really cool is when you preview this, you can actually, when you affect this, you can it'll show in your preview. So if I go down to 0, you'll see that, let's see, let's go the other way. I think I have to refresh it. So anyway, under the presets, there's a lot of different types of options we can have. They have nature, they have snow. I want to show you the snow one. It's really cool. So we're going to add a snow to our FX stack here. And I have the preview on. And under here it says apply on current layer. You can do it on a current layer, or you can do groups, or you can do all the layers. So if you have layers that are in groups, you can affect only that group, or you could affect a single layer, or you could affect all the layers that are within your timeline here. So, and then here it says all instances or a selection. This means that if you have all instances on this layer, it's going to affect every single one of these in the frame. If you want to do selection, all you have to do is, like, if you have a certain number of frames you only wanted to apply it to in your shot, you just go ahead and you select that by just dragging. You click below the frame here until it turns yellow, and then you take and just drag it. You click down on your mouse and you hold it and you drag it all the way to whatever you want to affect it to. So I'm going to bring this back to the first one here. Okay, so we're going to make sure our visual effects layer is selected, so that's the only layer we are applying it to. So we're going to go ahead, and it says preview. This HUD is, if I'll show you, we're going to apply this. As you can see, it applied to every single, it created new keyframes to every single frame that's within this 40 frame shot. And then what we could do is we could press play. I think what it is that we need to actually affect the background. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that, and we're going to bring this down to this one, and we're going to apply it to that one. And it's still not allowing us to post it. Okay, let's see. Let's try undoing that. Okay. And let's check our emitters. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's why we have no emitters yet chosen, because I was going through the different types of visual effects that we have. So what we're going to do is we're going to put, I'm just going to put down an eclipse. And then when we put an eclipse, it comes up with all these different types of options we can use. And the eclipse is as you can see, it's a circle that we're using as an emitter. This is the actual emitter here in the center. And this is really cool, is as you move this around, you can see over here that this is actually moving our X and Y coordinates. And we can do Z depth if we're using, as I showed you before, the multi-plane camera. But since we're not using that, we're just going to use the X and Y axis. So you can move it around, you can have it in different places within your scene here. You can affect the direction of how it is emitted, the particles will be emitted through. And then these are all the different type of options you can use for this particle. We have a pre-render, 0 seconds. You can render this out and just have it already, so it's kind of like buffered. We have angle. This is the angle of the emitter. Rotation, if you want to create like a flamethrower that goes in a rotation, kind of like for video games, or for a really cool top-down animation, or if you want to use it as you can even use it as if you have a tire or something. We have range, number, 100%, life, this is the life of the particle. The life is how long it stays on the screen. If it's 100%, it will keep going out until it dies out. If you bring it down, it'll bring that particle to fade out closer and closer to the emitter. The size, you can change the size of the emitter here. You can make the emitter smaller, or you can make the emitter, the particle emitter, bigger. It'll push out the particles a lot farther. So I'm just going to leave this at 100%. Velocity is the velocity of your particles. When the particles are emitted through this outwards, it's how fast the emitter spits out the particles. So if you want the velocity, the particles to come out really, really fast, then you can. If you want them to come out slower, you can change the velocity. And the weight is how heavy the particles are. They'll affect the direction and also affect how the impact of those particles will have in your scene. We have bounce. This will allow us to, if we're going to use a collision, just like in 3D, when you use a collision for a particle to bounce off another object, you can apply that here as well. The friction is just if it bounces off an object, which we're not going to have an object here. I'm not going to show you until later. Where the friction, if it bounces off, it depends on how much it allows that particle to create friction, so it slows down along that object. And then we have the opacity, and this is just to set like how transparent or opaque you want your particle to be seen on your stage. Motion randomness, this is just kind of like a jitter. It allows you to have either a linear straight particle generator, or allows you to randomly put motions that'll spit it out, so it looks a little more random and organic. And then the spin allows you to spin the particles, in case you want to add a little bit more impact on your particle visually. And then we have the quick preview. This quick preview, again, is just like brought up this white window and a drop down. I usually have a full quality and anti-aliasing. This allows it to create almost like an HD preview. The only bad thing about this particle generator preview is like if you're doing snow or those eyes that I showed you earlier, or anything that has a white or a lighter color to your particle generator, you're not going to be able to see it in this preview because it has a white background. And so this is the quick preview. We have down here, there's 3 options. The preview I have here is, it will allow us to preview as well as on the stage. And they have HUD, which is, as you can see, it shows you the actual particle generator. And this is cool because then you can move around your generator. And when you don't want to see this and you just want to see what your effects is that's being applied to your layer, you just go ahead and uncheck the HUD and that disappears. It's still there, you just can't see it. So I just go ahead and select that for now, just so we can see how we can affect the different options we have for our particle generator. And then we have preview, which is full. Preview, there's different options you can have for your preview. The first one is show preview, which is good because you want to see what it looks like on your scene. Just remember that even though you choose any of these previews, except for no preview, it will not apply that visual effects or the effects that you want to use for your layer until you come down here and hit apply FX stack. This is the last button on the menu because this will permanently put this on your layer. But this can also be done like I showed you before, just by pushing the undone button and backtrack your application. So under full, you could do show preview for full, which does the full screen. If you want to see what it does just to like part of your animation while you see the raw part of the animation on one side, all you have to do is go to the full or the preview, and you go to full, and then you can do split preview left, and this will allow you, as you can see the arrows here, it'll allow you to see the visual effects only on this side of your project screen, and then the original untouched screen or project that you're animating will be visual on this side without the visual effects added to it. So it's a split screen window, which is really cool. And you can have the option to do on the right side. As you can see, the split screen, it actually has these little arrows, like I said, and you can grab those arrows and you can move the split screen so you can see like more of the visual effects over your current animation or less. So that way you can see how it affects your animation without actually applying it to your animation. It's a really cool feature. So we also have split top. As you can see, this allows us to split also as well to see if you have like, a feature where it's, you just want to see what the snow or rain or even if you have like fireflies or something like that added to your scene, you just want to see how it affects what it looks like with and without. And then we also have bottom, and again that arrow you see will point towards the bottom, and we can adjust that as well. So we can apply this on the, like I said, we can apply this on the current layer, the group layers, all layers. I just usually on the current layer. All instances, which I created 40 instances. They call instances what we call frames. They can be keyframes, they can be in-betweens. It's just the frame on the timeline, all these frames. So instances are frames. So, and then we have frames, and we have apply on frames or apply on heads. This is basically frames and keyframes. So I just go ahead and just apply on frames, because that way it just applies on whatever I have selected or I don't have selected for my instances. And then we have the particle menu up here. If you go into the particles, we have the ellipse. The particle, like I showed you, you can move this around. As you can see, the X and Y coordinates. The angle of the particle that the generator spits out, you can actually change the angle. So you can, like, for instance, if you have a snowblower, if you have some kind of gun that you have on your character that you want to shoot whatever out of it, like lava or some kind of plasma out of it, you want it to go only in one direction, you can use the angle tool to create that direction, and then you just stick the particle right onto the particle generator right onto the tip of that gun. So that's very useful and helpful, and as you can see, you can apply this really fast and really intuitive to your project. And then the direction again, and this is the direction in which it will spit out the particles. You can have this in any direction, you can change that. And then you have the rotation, which is the rotation of the generator. The width of the generator, you can change the width higher, or you can change it lower. As you can see, the generator in the middle shrinks or expands. And you can do that manually too on the screen using your HUD. See, as you can see, you can stretch that out. This will allow you to create a more balanced effect for your screen, for your project. Again, we go down to here, and it says particles none. We're just going to go to new particle, and this you can keep adding more and more particles. But in the particle, we're just going to use the particle 1, and then we're just going to use link to emitter. You can also have a number. This number here, you'll see it says 50 PS. This is the number of particles it's going to shoot out of this particle generator onto your screen every second. So it's set to 50 particles per second. So it's going to shoot out 50 particles out of here per second. And then the life of those particles, every particle that is shot out of the generator, the life tells you how long that particle lives as soon as it leaves the generator. So when it goes out, it times it, like as you can see here, it says 2 seconds. 2s, s means second. So as soon as this gets spit out of the particle, it's gonna go 1/1000, 2/1000, then it'll disappear. And every single particle that's shot out will disappear after 2 seconds. We can change this, we can up it, or we can lower it depending on what your need is for your project. And the points is just how many points to those particles. Then we go down here, and then the shape you can have. I'll show you that in a second. There's a lot of options for these generators, and there's a lot of options you can have for your particles or for whatever you use for your visual effects. And as you can see, this allows you to maximize the look and the feel of whatever your kind of effects you're adding to your project. So under here we have a current, the size of your particle, the velocity, how fast your particle comes out, the weight, which will be how fast it falls, or if you have whatever direction you have on your current, the direction here. And you'll see, so that's the weight and the bounce. Of course, if you're using it to collide with another object, the friction again, the opacity. If you can see it over time, you can change it so that you can create a different opacity over time. Like you can have it fade out quicker, or you can have it stay opaque longer. You can use this graph here to change that. You can also add points, so you can create a more balanced or more customized opacity. And then motion randomness, you can also, as you can see, you can click on here and you can change that too. You can make it more erratic, the motion in which the particle comes, the path it chooses. And then spin, this is just if the particle needs to spin on your project for any other reason, you can adjust that too as well and add more points just by clicking on the line. You can add as many points as you want, adjust those points. As you can see, this is very, very intuitive and very easy to use. I know it's not very easy to understand, but like I said in my other films, that in the tutorials, that you could just take and play with it, and the more you play with it or the more you use it, the more you understand it. And it's really cool because once you start just like spitting out and just seeing what the preview is like and just spitting it out the generators, and then you can change them, you can see like how it affects the particles and what it does. So we have all this set up. I'm just gonna see what we have for the presets, and I'm just gonna go ahead and choose snow as our preset. And as you can see, I changed the particle emitter. You can change the emitter size. As you can see, when I hit play, you can see the snow is actually black. You can see it right along the side frame. And I want the snow to be white so we can see it. So I'm just going to go to my emitter, and I have snow, and then I have current particles and current, and I want to see what's, we have flocks. We have small flocks and we have large flocks. Flocking is just the size of the particle of the snow. Snow is called, comes down in flocks. Numbers, points, life, current shape. As you can see, it has already presets, so we can change the size of the snow. We can make it bigger. As you can see, the particles get bigger. And the shape, we have from file, and you can go to browse. We have a project list too. You can use that once you set that up. It's kind of like our bin. There are presets, and you can go to browse, and they have different like flock. These are, the dip is the texture. that is applied to our particle. We can have different types of texture. You can do cotton. It all depends upon what you're using for, again, for your, you can have dice too. What you're using for your project. We have bubbles, apples. There's all different types of ones we can use. And for this one, we're just going to be using, again, like I said, the flock, which is for the snow. And we're just going to hit OK. You can just choose whichever one applies to your project. You push OK. And then the color source, none. I put color because I want a white right now. It's transparent. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose a white. When you click on that, it'll like, oh, what kind of, see that question mark right here on the pointer? It's like, oh, what color are you choosing? And you can go over to your color picker here and you can choose whatever color you want for your snow. Or you can just color on any, you can select anything on the screen. Like, I want mine white. I'm like, so I'll just go over here and choose this white. You know, and as you can see, the color is checkerboard, which means it's totally transparent. So we got to turn the opacity up so it's not transparent anymore. So I'm going to put the alpha at 100%. And as you can see the snow. And you can keep changing this so it's like more and more if you need to. It all depends again upon your project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play. As you can see, the snow is falling down, which is really, really cool. We have different rotations on it and spins, as we can see in our over here in our current. We have the current active and the size. You can change the size or the velocity. You can change the velocity so it goes faster, or you can change the velocity so it goes slower. And as you can see, you can change this on the fly and it'll render it back out. See, the velocity is slower. But you see we have it, it's only coming down here. And the reason why also you don't see it coming down on the full screen is because we have a split screen preview here. If we go ahead and choose over here, left or right, I'm just going to do the whole show preview for the whole frame so that we can see it come down and we can use the whole frame. As you can see, it's still not coming down. The reason why is because the current frames that we're using, we're only using 40 frames. And this allows the particles only to go so far before it loops back around. So what these are for, these are handles. These allow you to expand the emitter out. And so we can place this over the whole entire top screen of our project. And it will expand it out from the center, and the screen part here is our center. And as you can see, the cone or the angle of our emitter is pointing down. So it'll create more. So if you want to take and let's adjust this so you can see it fall down even further. You can go down here and we can change the frames. You can pull the frames out even more. So you can pull it out to like 90. Let's go with 70. See how that looks. Okay, see, and this right here, the reason why it's affecting it is because the life of the particle is shorter, so it disappears after a while. And like I said, I think it's set to 2 seconds. Yeah, life is 2 seconds. We can up this, and we'll see how that affects that. See, as you can see, the life. You can increase that in the number 90. We can increase that to, we can go higher, and it'll increase the amount of snow we have. And then we also can change the angles of this as well, so that it changes the angle of the snow or the direction it falls in. So as you can see, there's a lot of different options you can use for your projects. They're pretty cool. As you can see, it changes the velocity and direction of our snow. Really, really cool options. I love how intuitive and how easy it is to use this. And then the handle, this is just, these handles here, it changes. You can change this, as you can see, it's actually changing in Z depth. So you can have your particles straight on. It all depends on how your camera is set up for your scene. And the animation, you can send it to, you can loop it. You can do random loop. There's a lot of different types of animations, presets that you have here. Again, the colorizing, you can take and do like multiplying, overlaying. This is how it's applied to the layer. And I just use color, but like in Photoshop, they have all these on the layer options. You can use them here as well. And then, like I said, you can do color, you can do gradient. Gradient's pretty cool because you can take and create a fade, so it's a lot more softer as it flows down. And then you have the quick preview again. Oops, it stopped. The generator overloaded the program. So that's basically our generator. I'm going to go into more of the different other types of generators, but it's a pretty good start, and I appreciate your input, and we always value your comments. So go ahead and leave a comment, or if you want to see something else that's more specific, just go ahead and let us know, and we'll include it in our next video. Until then, keep practicing and keep animating.